On Thanksgiving, my parents gave me a $2 lottery ticket while my sister got a cruise package. Then I won $100 million. My name is Audrey Crawford. I'm 32 years old, and 2 months ago, my own parents humiliated me in front of 30 relatives with a crumpled $2 lottery ticket. Meanwhile, they handed my older sister and her husband a luxury Caribbean cruise worth over $13,000. Everyone laughed. What none of them knew was that the cheap little ticket they mocked would destroy every lie this family had built for years. And, trust me, the money wasn't even the biggest secret waiting to explode. Thanksgiving at the Crawford house was never about love. It was theater. Everyone had a role. My father played the successful family man. My mother played the perfect hostess. My sister Vivian played the golden child. And me? I played the invisible daughter. The one people only noticed when they needed something carried, cleaned, or fixed. That night, I arrived exactly at 5 p.m. carrying a homemade autumn salad and flowers I had spent 3 months growing myself. Deep burgundy dahlias. Beautiful. At least I thought so. The moment my mother opened the door, her eyes landed on the bouquet before she forced a smile. Oh,
Audrey.
still wasting time with plants, I see. Before I could answer, loud squealing exploded behind her. Vivian's here. My mother brushed past me like I was furniture and ran straight to my sister. There's my beautiful girl. Vivian stepped inside wearing a white designer coat that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Behind her was Marcus Pierce, her husband. Perfect smile. Perfect haircut. Perfect fake personality. I hated him instantly. Not because he was rude. Because he was too smooth. Men like Marcus always are. Dad barely looked at me from his recliner. Audrey, good. Help your mother set the table. That was it. No hug. No happy Thanksgiving. Just work.
Typical.
I walked into the dining room while laughter filled the house behind me. Marcus was already entertaining everyone with stories about luxury real estate deals and wealthy clients. The family hung on to every word like he was some genius billionaire. I watched quietly while folding napkins. Something about him felt wrong.
Cold.
Calculated. Like he looked at people and saw price tags instead of faces. Audrey, sweetheart. I turned. My mother stood beside a distant cousin smiling tightly. This is my younger daughter. She does gardening or something with plants. I froze. Landscape architecture. I corrected softly. I design corporate green spaces. She waved dismissively. Same thing. The cousins smiled awkwardly. I kept folding napkins. Some fights aren't worth starting.
Not yet.
Later, while refilling water in the kitchen, I heard voices behind the half-open pantry door.
Mom.
Dad. Vivian. The cruise leaves December 15th, Mom whispered excitedly. 2 full weeks in the Caribbean. Vivian gasped happily. Oh my God. The kids are going to freak out. Dad chuckled. Marcus deserves it after everything he's done for this family. My hand tightened around the pitcher. Then Vivian casually asked, what about Audrey? Silence. Long silence. Finally, Dad sighed. She probably wouldn't fit in on this kind of trip anyway. Mom laughed quietly. She's too busy with dirt and flowers. All 3 laughed. Something inside me cracked. I pushed the pantry door open. So, I'm not invited? Their faces snapped toward me. Mom recovered first. Audrey, sweetheart. No, I interrupted. It's okay. I understand. Vivian crossed her arms. You're always so independent anyway. Independent. That was the family word for unwanted. Before I could respond, movement appeared behind them. Grandma Grace.
Tiny.
Fragile. Holding her walker. But her eyes? Sharp as knives. She looked at me for a long second before slowly reaching for my hand. Then she whispered something so quietly only I could hear it. Call Thomas Smith. I blinked. Who? But before she could answer, my mother quickly grabbed her wheelchair. Mom, you shouldn't be standing. Grandma Grace looked back at me as she was wheeled away. And for the first time all night, I realized someone in this family actually saw me. An hour later, everyone gathered around the giant dining table. 30 relatives. 30 smiling faces. Dad stood and tapped his wine glass dramatically. I want to celebrate my daughters tonight. Applause filled the room. Vivian smiled proudly beside Marcus. Dad handed her a large envelope first. Inside was the luxury cruise package. The room exploded with cheers. Oh my God, Vivian fake cried while hugging both parents. Thank you. Thank you. Then Mom turned toward me holding a much smaller envelope. Audrey, honey, this one's for you. I opened it slowly. A wrinkled lottery ticket fell into my hand. Mega Millions. $2. The room went quiet for 1 second. Then Marcus smirked. Well, luck's cheaper than talent. People laughed. Actually laughed. Even Vivian giggled. Maybe she'll win $5. Heat burned across my face. But instead of crying, I smiled. A small smile. Because something strange happened in that exact moment. For the first time in my life, I stopped needing their approval. Thank you, I said calmly. I'm sure this ticket is exactly what I deserve. Nobody noticed the edge in my voice, except Grandma Grace. And the way she stared at my parents that night
Terrified me.
because it looked like she knew something they didn't. Something dangerous. That night should have ended with humiliation. Instead, it became the beginning of a war my family never saw coming. After dinner, most relatives moved into the living room laughing about the cruise. Vivian and Marcus sat together on the couch showing everyone photos of private beaches and luxury suites. Meanwhile, I was in the kitchen alone.
Cleaning. Of course.
Because in my family, golden children celebrated. Invisible daughters worked. I stood at the sink quietly scrubbing dishes while hearing Marcus brag from the next room. First class everything, he said proudly. When you work hard, life rewards you. I almost laughed. Men like Marcus never worked hard. They manipulated hard. Around 11 p.m. the house finally became quieter. Relatives started leaving. Mom walked guests to the door, while Dad poured another glass of wine. I carried dirty plates toward Dad's office when something caught my attention. The office light was still on. That was unusual. Dad never left papers out. Ever. But tonight his desk was covered with documents. Messy.
Rushed.
Like someone had panicked. I stepped closer carefully. Bills. Past due notices. Collection warnings. My stomach tightened. Then I saw Marcus's name. Loan agreement. $180,000. My heart skipped. The interest rate was insane. Predatory. The kind desperate people signed when they were drowning. And then I saw the worst part. Collateral. Grace Mitchell property. Grandma Grace's house. I froze completely.
No.
No way. I grabbed the papers with shaking hands. There it was. Grandma's signature.
Weak. Crooked.
Barely readable. Dated 6 months earlier. The same week Grandma had been hospitalized after her fall. The same week she'd been heavily medicated. Oh my God. They made her sign the house away. I quickly pulled out my phone and started taking photos. Every page. Every signature. Every detail. My pulse thundered so loudly, I barely heard footsteps outside the office. I shoved the papers back into place just as Marcus appeared in the doorway. For one terrifying second, his eyes narrowed. Like he knew. What are you doing in here, Audrey?
His voice sounded calm.
Too calm. I forced a smile. Dad asked me to grab empty glasses. Marcus stared at me for another second before smiling slowly. That fake perfect smile again. You know, he said quietly, curiosity can be dangerous. A chill crawled down my spine. Then he walked away. I waited 10 seconds before breathing again. Something was very wrong. And Marcus Pierce wasn't just some rich businessman. He was involved in something dirty. I slipped outside through the back door and sat inside my car gripping the steering wheel. My entire body shook. The cruise. The favoritism. The humiliation. It suddenly made sense. This wasn't about loving Vivian more. This was about control. I was the problem. Because unlike everyone else, I noticed things. That night, I barely slept. Around 2 a.m., I remembered Grandma's whisper.
Call Thomas Smith.
I grabbed my phone and searched the name. Thomas Smith, estate attorney. Why would Grandma want me calling a lawyer? The next morning I called anyway. A calm, older voice answered. Thomas Smith speaking. My name is Audrey Crawford. My grandmother Grace Mitchell told me to contact you. Silence. Then his tone changed instantly. Miss Crawford, I've been waiting for your call. Every hair on my arm stood up. What does that mean? I believe your grandmother suspected something might happen. My chest tightened. She told me almost nothing. I think it's best we speak in person. About what? A pause. About your grandmother's house, and something your family has hidden from you for years. I drove to his office the next afternoon. Small building. Old wood furniture. Quiet. The kind of office where secrets lived for decades. Thomas Smith looked to be in his 60s with silver hair and tired eyes. But the moment he saw me, he looked relieved. Please sit down, Audrey. I sat slowly. What's going on? Without speaking, he slid a folder across the desk. I opened it, and my entire world changed. Trust fund beneficiary. Audrey Crawford. Amount. $500,000. I stared at the number, unable to breathe. What is this? 10 years ago, Thomas said carefully, your grandmother created a trust fund in your name. My mind spun. She what? She wanted you protected. I looked up slowly. Protected from who? Thomas didn't answer immediately, but he didn't need to. I already knew. My parents. He nodded once. Your grandmother believed that if your family discovered the money, they would pressure you into giving it away. Tears burned behind my eyes. For 32 years, Grandma Grace had been the only person truly watching, the only one who understood what was happening to me. There's more, Thomas said quietly. My stomach dropped. What else? He opened another folder. Inside were copies of the same house documents I photographed the night before. Only these included medical records. Grandma had signed everything while under heavy medication. This could be fraud. Real fraud. Criminal fraud. And suddenly, everything became dangerous. Because if Marcus lost that house deal, he lost everything. And men like Marcus? They don't lose quietly. If you're enjoying this story so far, comment where you're watching from and subscribe for more stories like this. Things are about to get much crazier. Then Thomas leaned forward seriously. Audrey, there's one more thing you need to know. What? He looked directly into my eyes. Your father owes Marcus far more money than anyone realizes. And, in that moment, I realized my family wasn't falling apart. It was already destroyed. They just didn't know it yet. I drove home from Thomas Smith's office completely numb. The city lights blurred past my windshield while one sentence repeated in my head over and over. Your grandmother wanted to protect you. Not Vivian. Not the golden child.
Me.
For 32 years, I thought I was unwanted by everyone in my family. Turns out, the one person who mattered most had trusted me all along. By the time I reached my apartment, my hands were still shaking. I dropped my keys onto the counter and stared at the crumpled lottery ticket sitting beside the sink. That stupid little ticket. The one they used to humiliate me. I almost threw it away 3 different times. Now I picked it up slowly. Maybe because after learning about the trust fund and the fraud, something inside me had changed. I suddenly wanted to know. I opened the Mega Millions app casually. Not expecting anything. Definitely not expecting my life to split into 2 separate versions forever. Before and after. I typed the numbers in. First number matched. I blinked. Second number matched. My heartbeat slowed strangely. Third.
Fourth. Fifth.
I stopped breathing. No. Then the final number matched. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to correct itself. It didn't. Winner, jackpot claimed, $100 million. The room became completely silent. No dramatic screaming. No crying. No jumping around. Just silence. Pure shock. I refreshed the app again. Same result. I checked the official lottery website. Same numbers. Same jackpot. $100 million. My knees gave out, so suddenly I dropped into the kitchen chair. I laughed once. A small broken laugh. Because the universe had a sick sense of humor. The daughter, worth only $2, had just become worth more than the entire Crawford family combined. And suddenly, everything made sense. The calls, the manipulation, the fake concern they always showed whenever they needed something. For the first time in my life, I had power, real power, not because of money, because I no longer needed anything from them. The next 3 days felt unreal. I still went to work, still answered emails, still met clients about landscaping projects. But internally, my entire world had shifted. Every time my phone buzzed with messages from Mom or Vivian, I felt absolutely nothing. No guilt, no anxiety, no desperate need to please them anymore. It was like waking up after 32 years underwater. But I told no one, not a single person, not even Aunt Marlene, especially not my family, because something deep in my gut warned me. If Marcus Pierce discovered I'd won that money, things could turn ugly fast. On the 4th morning, Thomas Smith called me. "Miss Crawford, we need to discuss how you'll claim the winnings." "You already know?" "You sound shocked," he replied calmly. "You called an estate lawyer the same week someone nearby wins $100 million. I suspected. Despite myself, I smiled slightly. "Can you help me stay anonymous?"
Yes.
"But Audrey, you need to move carefully now." His voice turned serious. "Money like this changes people." Too late, I thought. Mine changed long ago. I met him again that afternoon. He explained trusts, LLCs, anonymous claims, asset protection. I barely understood half of it. But one thing became very clear. I could disappear from my old life completely if I wanted. New city, new house, new future. No more humiliation. No more family dinners where I existed only to serve others. I should have felt excited. Instead, I kept thinking about Grandma Grace. And that house. Thomas slid another document toward me. "Your father is 3 missed payments away from defaulting." "How long?" "At most a month. And, if he defaults, Marcus legally gets the house." Rage flooded through me instantly. That house wasn't just property. It was Grandma's entire life. Her memories, her safety, her home. And my parents had gambled it away. I leaned back slowly. "What happens if I pay the debt?" Thomas studied me carefully. "You'd save the house. And Marcus? He loses leverage." I smiled coldly for the first time in years.
Good.
Because Marcus Pierce had spent too long believing he controlled everyone around him. What he didn't know yet was that the quiet, invisible girl he mocked at Thanksgiving now had enough money to destroy every plan he'd built. But before I could make any decisions, my phone buzzed.
Mom.
I ignored it. Then another message.
Vivian.
Then Dad. 3 calls in under a minute. My stomach tightened. Something had happened. Finally, I answered Dad. "Audrey," he snapped immediately. "Where have you been?" "No hello."
Typical.
"Working. You need to come over tonight."
Why? A pause.
Then, "Marcus has a business opportunity for you." I almost laughed out loud. There it was. Not love. Not concern. Opportunity. For them. What kind of opportunity? Dad lowered his voice. "He thinks you might finally be ready to make real money instead of playing with flowers." Something inside me hardened permanently at that moment. Because even after everything, they still saw me as small. Still saw me as beneath them. And honestly, that was about to become the biggest mistake of their lives. The moment Dad mentioned Marcus had a business opportunity for me, I knew something was wrong. Marcus Pierce never helped people unless there was something in it for him. Especially me. I arrived at my parents' house around 7 p.m. The same house where I'd spent years feeling invisible. Only this time, I walked in carrying a secret worth $100 million. And nobody had any idea. Mom opened the door with a fake smile, so forced it almost looked painful. "Audrey, there you are." Interesting. Suddenly I was important enough for enthusiasm. Inside, the atmosphere felt tense. Dad sat stiffly in the living room. Vivian looked distracted. And Marcus? Marcus looked nervous. That caught my attention immediately. Because men like Marcus don't get nervous easily. "Audrey," he said smoothly, standing to greet me. "You look good." I smiled politely. So, what's this big opportunity? Marcus gestured toward the dining table. Papers covered the surface.
Charts.
Contracts. Investment projections. Classic scammer theater. Dad leaned forward eagerly. Marcus has an incredible investment deal. Huge returns. How huge? I asked calmly. Marcus smiled. Triple profits within a year.
Right.
Definitely a scam. I sat down quietly while Marcus launched into a long speech about luxury property development, short-term lending, and investor partnerships. Most of it sounded intentionally complicated. That's what manipulators do. Confuse people until they stop asking questions. Finally, he slid a paper toward me. All you need is an initial contribution. How much? Marcus smiled carefully. $50,000. I nearly laughed. $50,000. The same family who mocked my career suddenly believed I had money to invest? Interesting. I don't have $50,000, I replied. Dad sighed dramatically like I was disappointing him again. Audrey, sometimes you have to take risks to succeed. Coming from a man secretly drowning in debt, Marcus leaned closer. I'm only offering this because your family, that word again, always used right before someone tried taking something from me. I tilted my head slightly. What happens if the investment fails? It won't. That's not what I asked. For the first time, Marcus's smile flickered. Dad jumped in quickly. You're overthinking it.
No.
I was finally thinking clearly. Then something unexpected happened. Vivian suddenly spoke. Marcus, maybe we shouldn't pressure her. The room went silent. Marcus turned toward her slowly. His expression stayed calm,
But his eyes changed.
cold, sharp, warning her. And for the first time,
I saw it.
Vivian was scared of him.
Not openly.
Not obviously, but enough for me to notice. Marcus recovered instantly and laughed. No pressure at all. I just hate seeing opportunities wasted. I stood up. Well, I appreciate the offer, but I'll pass. Dad looked irritated immediately. You're making a mistake. No, I said quietly. I think for once I'm avoiding one. Marcus watched me carefully as I grabbed my coat. Then he said something that stopped me cold. You know, Audrey's people who refuse help sometimes regret it later. The tone underneath those words chilled me. Not advice. A threat. I looked directly at him. Funny. I was just thinking the same thing. For 1 second, his mask slipped, and I finally saw the real Marcus Pierce. Dangerous. Desperate.
Cornered.
I left immediately, but before I could reach my car, someone grabbed my arm. Vivian. She looked pale. Nobody can hear us out here, she whispered quickly. What's wrong? Her eyes darted toward the house nervously. You were right about Marcus. I stared at her. What do you mean? She swallowed hard. He's changed. He hides things. He gets angry whenever I ask questions about money. How bad is it? Vivian hesitated, then quietly said, I think Dad owes him more than they admitted. Not surprising. But there's something worse, she whispered. He's been disappearing at night. A cold feeling spread through my stomach. Where does he go? I don't know, she admitted. But I checked our bank accounts yesterday. Fear filled her eyes. There's money missing. How much? Almost $80,000. My pulse jumped instantly. Marcus wasn't just in debt. He was stealing. And suddenly, everything became very dangerous. Because desperate men do reckless things. Then Vivian grabbed my hand tightly. Audrey, if something happens, her voice cracked. Please protect Grandma. Before I could answer, the front door opened behind her. Marcus stepped outside smiling, but his eyes landed on our hands immediately, and his expression darkened. There you are, babe, he said softly. Vivian instantly pulled away, like she'd been caught doing something wrong. That told me everything. Marcus walked toward us slowly. You two having secrets? No, Vivian answered too quickly. Marcus smiled again. That same fake charming smile. But now I knew what lived underneath it.
Fear. Control.
Manipulation. And possibly worse. He wrapped an arm around Vivian possessively and looked at me. Drive safe, Audrey. I nodded once and got into my car. But the moment I drove away, I checked my rearview mirror. Marcus stood in the driveway watching me leave. Not smiling anymore, just staring. And deep down, I realized something terrifying. Marcus Pierce was starting to understand that I knew too much. 3 days later, the Crawford family left for their luxury Caribbean cruise. Mom posted photos from the airport before sunrise. Family vacation time red heart. I stared at the picture for a long moment. Dad smiling proudly. Vivian forcing a smile. Marcus wearing sunglasses indoors like some fake movie villain. And me?
Missing.
Again. Except this time, it didn't hurt anymore. Because, while they sailed toward paradise, their entire world was about to collapse. The morning they boarded the cruise ship, I sat inside Thomas Smith's office signing final paperwork for my anonymous lottery claim. Once this clears, Thomas explained, you'll officially control approximately $62 million after taxes. $62 million. Hearing it out loud still felt unreal. But honestly, the money wasn't even the biggest thing happening anymore. What about Grandma's house? I asked immediately. Thomas adjusted his glasses. We're ready to challenge the deed legally. The medical records are strong evidence. Can Marcus fight back? Oh, he absolutely will. That didn't surprise me. Marcus didn't strike me as the type to surrender quietly. Then my phone buzzed.
Vivian.
I almost ignored it, but something told me not to. Hello. Her voice sounded shaky. Audrey, Dad's credit card got declined at the port. I frowned.
What?
He's freaking out. Marcus disappeared for almost an hour trying to fix it. Interesting. Very interesting. And we got on board eventually, she whispered. But something feels wrong. Before I could respond, another voice appeared in the background. Marcus. Who are you talking to? Vivian immediately panicked. Nobody, just Audrey. A long silence followed. Then Marcus's voice came closer. Tell your sister we'll call her later. The line disconnected instantly. I stared at my phone slowly. Fear crawled through my stomach. Marcus was losing control. And desperate people become dangerous fast. That same afternoon, I made my move. I posted a single photo online. Just one. A picture of Grandma Grace's house. Caption. Some homes deserve protecting. That was it. Nothing else. Within 20 minutes, my phone exploded. Mom called first. Then Dad. Then Marcus. Then Vivian. I ignored every single one. By midnight, I had 46 missed calls. The next morning, 79. I listened to the voicemails one by one. Mom sounded fake sweet at first. Audrey, honey, call us back. Then nervous. Audrey, where did you get that photo? Then panicked. Audrey, what exactly are you doing? Dad's messages were worse. Stop posting things online. You don't understand the situation. Call me immediately. But Marcus's voicemail, that one chilled my blood. His voice stayed calm.
Too calm.
Audrey, I think we need to have a serious conversation. No anger. No shouting. Just controlled menace. Like a man trying very hard not to explode. That terrified me more. I immediately called Thomas. They know something. They suspect, he corrected carefully. That's worse. Thomas became quiet for a moment. Then, Audrey, I think it's time. Time for what? To stop reacting. He was right. For 32 years I'd stayed quiet while my family controlled every narrative, every insult, every humiliation. Not anymore. That night I sent one message into the family group chat.
We need to talk.
Video call tonight. 8 p.m. Everyone present. Immediately, the replies flooded in.
Mom.
Of course, sweetheart, red heart. Dad. We'll be there.
Vivian.
Okay. Marcus. Looking forward to it. That one made my skin crawl. At exactly 8 p.m., I joined the call. The cruise ship lounge appeared on screen behind them. Luxury lights. Ocean views. Fake smiles. Mom practically leaned into the camera. There's our girl. Dad smiled awkwardly. Vivian looked exhausted. Marcus looked focused. Watching me carefully. like he already knew this conversation could ruin him. I smiled politely. How's the cruise? Wonderful, Mom answered too quickly. Marcus interrupted smoothly. So, Audrey, what's this important conversation? Straight to business. Of course. I leaned back calmly. Well, I figured the family deserved honesty. Dad frowned immediately. What does that mean? I looked directly into the camera. I won the lottery.
Silence.
Complete silence. Then chaos exploded. Mom screamed.
Dad nearly dropped his drink.
Vivian covered her mouth in shock. But Marcus? Marcus didn't react normally. He didn't look surprised. He looked calculating. Like his brain immediately started turning numbers into opportunities. How much? He asked quietly. There it was. Not congratulations. Not happiness. Just greed. I smiled slowly. $100 million. Mom started crying instantly. Oh my God. Audrey. Dad suddenly looked proud for the first time in years. My daughter. Vivian looked completely speechless. But Marcus leaned forward slowly. That kind of money needs protection, he said calmly. I can help you manage.
No.
The word cut through him instantly. Marcus blinked. I kept smiling. I already hired professionals. For the first time all night, his confidence cracked slightly.
Good.
Then I took a deep breath. Now that we've discussed the lottery, I said softly, let's discuss Grandma's house. And suddenly, every face on the screen changed. The second I mentioned Grandma Grace's house, the entire mood changed. Mom stopped smiling. Dad went pale. Vivian looked confused. And Marcus? Marcus looked terrified. Not nervous. Not uncomfortable. Terrified. That told me everything. I stayed calm and shared my screen. The first document appeared instantly. The loan agreement. $180,000. Marcus Pierce and Gerald Crawford. Dad's breathing became uneven immediately. Audrey, he whispered. I ignored him. This, I said clearly, is the debt agreement Dad signed with Marcus. Mom's face lost all color. Vivian turned toward Marcus slowly. What debt? Marcus forced a laugh. It's just temporary business financing. No, I interrupted calmly. It's predatory lending. Dad slammed his hand on the table. That's enough. But I kept going, because for once, nobody could silence me anymore. I opened the next document. Grandma Grace's house deed. The room exploded. Vivian gasped loudly. Mom started shaking her head instantly. Audrey, stop this right now. This deed, I continued firmly, was signed while Grandma was heavily medicated in the hospital. Dad looked like he might collapse. Marcus finally snapped. You have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, I think I do. I clicked again. Medical records appeared.
Dates.
Medication reports. Doctor statements. Everything. Silence crushed the room. Then Vivian looked at Marcus.
Slowly. Carefully.
You used Grandma's house as collateral? Marcus didn't answer. That was answer enough. Vivian stood up, so fast her chair fell backward. You told me Dad needed help with business cash flow. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's exactly what this is. No, she whispered. You lied to me. Mom suddenly burst into tears. This family is falling apart. I almost laughed at the irony. Falling apart?
No.
This family shattered years ago. Tonight was just the first time everyone could finally hear the sound. Marcus leaned closer toward the camera. Audrey, you need to think very carefully about what you're doing.
Threat.
Again. Only this time, I wasn't scared anymore. I did think carefully, I replied calmly, which is why my lawyers already filed paperwork this morning. Dead silence. Dad looked horrified. You what? We're challenging the deed legally. Mom grabbed Dad's arm in panic. Gerald. Marcus's face darkened completely. You think money makes you untouchable? No, I said quietly. But truth helps. Then I opened the final folder. The screenshots. Messages between Marcus and Diana. The affair. The hotel receipts. The promises. The lies. Vivian stared at the screen without blinking. I watched her entire marriage collapse in real time. Marcus, she whispered weakly. He stood up instantly. She hacked my phone. No, I replied. You got careless. Vivian's breathing became shaky. She served her purpose. Her voice cracked reading the message aloud. Divorce papers are already drafted. Tears rolled down her face. Mom looked horrified. Dad looked sick. And Marcus? Marcus finally lost control. He slammed his hand against the table violently. You think you've won? There it was. The real Marcus.
Angry. Ugly.
Dangerous. Vivian flinched beside him instinctively. That tiny movement broke something inside me, because it meant this wasn't the first time he exploded like that. Suddenly Vivian stood up.
No.
Everyone froze. She wiped her tears slowly. No more lies. Marcus stared at her in disbelief. Sit down. Her face changed instantly. For the first time in my life. My sister looked truly awake.
No.
Marcus stepped toward her. Vivian, don't touch me. The silence after those words felt massive. Dad looked completely broken. Mom cried harder. Marcus stared around, realizing control was slipping through his fingers. And men like him cannot survive without control. I leaned closer to the camera one final time. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly. I'm paying off the debt.
Dad looked stunned.
The house returns to Grandma. Mom whispered my name weakly, but I kept going. And none of you will ever use her again. Marcus laughed bitterly. You really think this makes you some hero? I looked directly at him. No. Then I ended the call.
Just like that.
Black screen. Silence. My apartment suddenly felt incredibly quiet. No yelling. No manipulation. No pretending. Just silence. And honestly, I expected victory to feel better. Instead, I felt exhausted. Like I'd spent 32 years carrying something heavy and had finally dropped it. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed.
Vivian.
One message.
I didn't know.
Another message appeared immediately after. I swear to you, Audrey, I didn't know how bad he really was. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then another message came. Please protect Grandma. I closed my eyes slowly, because for the first time ever, my sister sounded exactly like me. 3 weeks after that video call, everything changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but permanently. Marcus Pierce disappeared from the Crawford family like he was never real. One day, he was controlling every conversation.
And the next? Gone.
No calls. No messages. No threats. Just silence. Thomas Smith later confirmed what I already suspected. Multiple investigations had started. Predatory lending. Fraudulent signatures. Illegal financial practices. Marcus didn't just lose control of the situation. He lost everything. And for the first time in a long time,
I didn't feel fear when I thought about him.
I felt distance. Like he belonged to another version of my life that no longer existed. The house case moved faster than expected. Thomas called me one afternoon. It's done. That was all he said. But I understood immediately. Grandma Grace's house was safe. Legally protected. Fully restored. No debt. No Marcus. No manipulation. Just hers again. When I told Grandma, she didn't cry. She just closed her eyes and smiled softly. I knew you would fix it, she whispered. That hit me harder than anything Marcus ever said. Because she never doubted me. Not once. A few days later, I brought her home. The same house where everything started falling apart.
But now,
it felt different. Not broken. Not stolen. Alive again. We sat in the garden that afternoon. The same garden I once saw neglected. Now slowly coming back to life. I'm tired, Grandma said quietly. I nodded. I know. She looked at me carefully. You've done enough running for this family. I stayed quiet. Then she added something I'll never forget. Now live for yourself. Those words stayed with me longer than anything else in this entire story. Meanwhile, my parents were not okay. Dad lost his business completely. Mom took a job at a grocery store. They didn't become villains anymore. Just people dealing with consequences. No dramatic downfall. Just reality catching up. Vivian was different. She didn't disappear. She didn't beg. She didn't pretend anymore. She sent a letter first, then a second message, then finally asked to meet. When we met at a small cafe, she looked different. Not perfect. Not polished.
Real.
I didn't see it, she said quietly. I didn't respond immediately. I thought I did, she added. But I was living in a version of life Marcus created. I stirred my coffee slowly. Most people do, I said. She looked down. I should have protected you. That silence between us wasn't angry. It was honest. For the first time, we weren't playing roles anymore. No golden child. No invisible daughter. Just two people trying to understand what had happened. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I nodded. Good, I replied. She actually smiled a little at that. Not offended. Relieved. Because honesty was finally replacing performance. We didn't fix everything that day. We didn't become best friends overnight. But something important happened. We stopped pretending. And that was enough. Months later, my life looked nothing like before. I bought a modest house near Grandma. Nothing flashy. No show-off lifestyle. Just peace. My landscape architecture work expanded into public gardens. Real projects. Real impact. And, for the first time, people valued me for what I built, not what they could take from me. The lottery money? Still there. Mostly untouched. Not because I was afraid to use it, but because I finally understood something important. Money doesn't heal family wounds. Boundaries do. Truth does. Distance does. One evening, I stood in Grandma's garden as the sun went down. She was resting inside. Clover, my rescue dog, ran through the grass chasing nothing in particular. I smiled quietly, because life finally felt mine. Not borrowed. Not controlled. Not earned through suffering. Just mine. And if there's one thing I learned through all of this, it's this. You don't need to win the lottery to become free. You just need to stop accepting roles people forced on you. I was never the problem in my family. I was just the one who stopped pretending everything was fine. And that changed everything. If you enjoyed this story, this is the only part where I'll say it. If you want more stories like this, you can like and subscribe. And if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, just know this. Your voice matters more than they ever told you. The real jackpot was never money. It was finally choosing yourself.